What's going on, guys? It's TH Chicken here, and today I'm making a YouTube video of my top 10 bold predictions for the 2018-19 NBA season. Keep in mind, these are bold predictions. These aren't like my actual predictions of what I think will happen. These are just like some bold statements that I think could happen in the NBA season, and I think are a real possibility. So I'll get you with number 10 in a minute here. Alright, coming in at number 10, this is going to be about the New Orleans Pelicans, a team that a lot of people are kind of high on coming into this season because of their postseason success, without DeMarcus Cousins. Anthony Davis went off, and a lot of people are actually expecting him to get the MVP award this upcoming season. I just don't see it. I don't think the Pelicans, I don't think they'll win enough games. Personally, I don't think Anthony Davis will even be top 3 in MVP voting, which gets into my bold prediction. I don't think the Pelicans are going to make the playoffs. That's why. Even if they were the 8th seed, I think he still would be top 3. But not making the playoffs, he's not going to get really any MVP considerations unless he averages like 30 points and like 15 rebounds. But, I mean, he easily could do it. I mean, I'm not saying no one will think he deserves the award, but I don't think he has a realistic shot of winning it like a lot of people think he does. And the reason I don't think the Pelicans are going to make the playoffs, a lot of people say, well, they have a pretty deep roster. Obviously, they have one of the best players in the league in Anthony Davis. And one of people's main arguments is that they were better whenever DeMarcus Cousins went out. Technically, yes, they had a better record after he went down, but they him and Anthony Davis were just starting to mesh together. I think if Cousins stayed, if he didn't get injured, they probably would have been like a 50 to 53 win team. They were just starting to mesh. And after he went down, obviously they won like 10 straight games or something. And a lot of people say that's pretty much only due to Anthony Davis. But don't forget Drew Holiday. He also completely went off. He was playing amazing. And I really don't think he's going to be able to average 20 points and 6 assists, but I don't think he's going to be able to put up the numbers he did during that 10-game stretch and during the postseason for an entire NBA season. Because if he did, he'd be one of the best point guards in the league. And another thing, when Cousins went down, Rajon Rondo also stepped up huge for the Pelicans. A lot of people kind of underrate how much he stepped up for them. But he was looking like back in his Boston days, he was averaging 10 assists, 10 points. Just his impact on the floor, on the offensive end, just meant so much for this team. And the fact that they replaced him with fucking Elfrid Payton says a lot about, where I think this team is going. And I don't think they have what it takes in this Western Conference to make the playoffs. I think the Warriors are obviously better than them. The Rockets, those are the two obvious ones. And then I think the Lakers, the Jazz, the Thunder, the Spurs, the Nuggets, even the Blazers. Even though they beat the Blazers in the playoffs last year, they may be a better postseason team, but the Blazers I think are still a better regular season team, and are still built a little bit better, I guess. I don't know. Alright, coming in at number 9 on my list. This one's a bit funny, and I think a lot of people disagree with this one, but I actually think, despite joining a team with two very ball-dominant point guard type players in James Harden and Chris Paul, who really need the ball to flow through them to be good, I think he will have a good season. Last year, he was incredibly inefficient, but in OKC, this was just a Melo that we have never seen before. He was just awful. He fell off a cliff. But I think he was in the wrong system, he was playing with, obviously, Russell Westbrook, who is already kind of hard to play with, and then Paul George, who is inconsistent and will take a lot of shots. Not taking any, throwing any shade at Westbrook and Paul George. I think those two are a very deadly duo, but adding Carmelo Anthony to the mix, I think was very, I don't know. I don't think it was the right move. I just don't think it was a good fit. I don't really think it was as much of just Melo being terrible as it was him not being in the right system. I mean, it still says a lot about your skill if you need, like, any great player can perform well in any great system. So obviously he's not that great if he needs a good system to perform well. But I think he'll fit in nice with the Rockets. He'll have Harden and Chris Paul getting wide open looks for him like basically all the time, and he's not gonna have to, you know, do all these ISOs and take these contested ass shots to try to score points because he's buried underneath Paul George and Russell Westbrook, who aren't gonna set up the best shots for him. I don't know. Maybe coming off the bench, he'll be like a seventh man. He might come off the bench. I don't know. I think they'll start him. They might try putting him off the bench, but I think in the long run, he's probably going to be starting for the majority of the season. And, you know, I think even if you're playing with Harden and Chris Paul, you can still put up, like, good stats. Like, Eric Gordon averaged, like, what, 19 points per game? If he can just fit into a role like an Eric Gordon or Trevor Ariza, just kind of take a step back a little bit and not try to be the alpha like he was trying to do last year, he could easily have a, not really statistical, but like just value-wise and impact-wise, he can have a bounce-back year compared to last year. Like, I don't know. I mean, maybe this prediction is the most fucking ridiculous one on the list, but I think it could happen, so we'll just keep an eye out for Carmelo Anthony. I think he'll have a bounce-back year. Okay, this one is probably going to piss a lot of people off. I mean, well, not a lot of people. I only have like 50 subs, but whoever watches this video and like knows anything about the NBA is probably like immediately going to disagree with me. But I have my reasons, okay? I think the Milwaukee Bucks, despite pretty much everyone's prediction, I don't think they're going to be a top 5 seed next season. Why? Well, first off, we say they're going to be top 4 to 5 seed every damn season going in, and it never happens. Now, I know they had a pretty rough start to the year last year because, you know, Jason Kidd wasn't using all this talent on this roster properly. And, you know, people think with this new coach, Mike Budenholzer, it's going to be different. But I don't believe it till I see it, you know? Like, until they go from that 42, 43 win team to that 50 win team that everyone says they're going to be, I'm not going to believe it's going to happen. Because they go into this season with lots of talent and they just don't do anything with it. And even if they are like say they're like a 48 win team, I still don't think they're going to be a top 5 seed. Because I don't think they're going to be better than the Wizards, and I don't think they're going to be better than the Pacers or the 76ers. I mean, it was kind of a no-brainer that Toronto and Boston are going to be higher than them. But the ones like Philly, Indiana, and Washington, a lot of people thought Milwaukee was going to be better than them record-wise. They're better than Indiana and Washington talent-wise, but I think just the system that they have and based on their level of play last year, I think Washington and Indiana are going to be higher in the standings than Milwaukee. They might not do better in the playoffs. They might not be actually like a better team, but I think they are going to win more games. At the end of the day, it does all come down to how this new coach does. Okay, so coming in at number 7, this one is a little interesting, and it's one that no one can really say, like, I don't know, there's no real way to predict when Jimmy Butler will get traded. But just in my personal opinion, I feel like if a trade was going to happen anytime soon, it would have been the Miami one that was about to go down. But Tom Thibodeau he just wasn't ready to give up Jimmy Butler. He wanted more picks, and it's kind of frustrating that he thinks he's going to get some generational young player back for Jimmy Butler, because that's just not going to happen. He has no leverage in this trade situation. And yes, Jimmy Butler said he is going to start the season with the Timberwolves, but we're really going to see the effect that this locker room problem is going to have on the team. I don't think they're going to start off the season very good, but I think Thibodeau is going to try to squeeze the most he can out of this roster with Jimmy Butler until he absolutely has to get rid of him. And I don't think Butler is going to get traded until the deadline or near the deadline. Okay, so this this is probably the most ridiculous prediction I have, but somehow it's also probably the most realistic one. I think Hassan Whiteside is going to average 20 plus points per game next season and easily be an all-star. Like, maybe even the starting center on the Eastern Conference side of things. Now, why do I think Hassan Whiteside is all of a sudden going to go from 14 points per game to 20? Three-pointers. That's my three-pointers. Okay, so last year he didn't have the green light to shoot them. And, you know, he's just having to do this old style of play that is kind of dead now and doesn't really work anymore for, like, centers. And I think it all really depends on if he is the consistent three-point shooter that he says he is. Because, you know, he's been kind of hyping himself up throughout the offseason, leaking videos and shit of him shooting threes. And if it's true, if he is this consistent three-point shooter that he says he is, then I think what he already would have been able to average plus what he's going to get from all the three-pointers, I think he's going to average 20 plus points per game and maybe even be the starting big on the Eastern Conference side of the All-Star game. Okay, so I know at first glance this Spurs team doesn't seem like much. I know. They don't even look like a team that could be a top 8 seed, maybe even in the Western Conference. Okay, whatever. But think about this. Last year, there were a lot of injuries, but the Western Conference was still tight as hell. It's probably the tightest it's ever been. You know, like, there were the 10th seed in the West was like a 44 win team or something, so it was a really tough conference last year. And the San Antonio Spurs were the 7th seed, but they were missing their franchise player who, when healthy, is arguably top 3 in the NBA. They made the playoffs with him only playing 9 games the entire season, and they won 47 games. So maybe if they didn't trade Kawhi, they had him fully healthy for the 2018-19 season, maybe they would have been like a 60-win team again like they were the year before. That's probably good for around the 2nd to 3rd seed in the Western Conference, just because, you know, there's the Warriors and the Rockets that you have to compete with, obviously. Okay, so then you take that and replace Kawhi Leonard with DeMar DeRozan, who may not be that good in the postseason, but he is an amazing player in the regular season. And with Greg Popovich's system, and also with LaMarcus Aldridge alongside him, I think the Spurs could easily win 53 to 55 games with this roster that they have, and be the fourth seed in the Western Conference, maybe 3rd if the Lakers have like a bad start to the season or something. But I know on paper, fuck, I just messed up on that free throw so bad. On paper, this team looks like it will like barely squeeze in, but I'm actually really confident that this team will be at least better than OKC, Utah, Blazers, and Pelicans. Maybe not the Lakers though, but another concern that a lot of people have with this team is how they're going to stretch the floor. The Spurs have never really been a team that shot that many threes anyway, so I don't know if it's going to be that much of a problem. And if it is, you have to keep in mind the Spurs have probably one of the best like shooting coaches, jump shot coaches, whatever the hell they're called in like the league. Like Kawhi pretty much had no jumper, no offensive game at all when he came into the league, and then maybe after like his third season, he was draining threes and fucking one of the best offensive players in the game. And DeMar is already leagues ahead of where a rookie Kawhi Leonard was. And he it's not like he couldn't shoot threes. I mean, he just didn't shoot them, you know? Like, and when he did, he shot like 30%, which is already pretty good. And then it'll probably improve next year, so I don't think floor spacing will be that much of a problem. You also have Marco Bellinelli, who's a consistent perimeter threat. Pau Gasol, Patty Mills, Rudy Gay. I think even LaMarcus can stretch the floor sometimes. So I think that whole thing where the Spurs have no floor spacing is a little more of an exaggeration than it is the actual truth, and I don't think it will be as much of a problem as people think. The San Antonio Spurs, after winning 47 last year and then adding DeMar DeRozan to that mix, I think they'll easily be a 53-55 win team. Okay, so this one isn't that bold, but like, I don't know, like a lot of people agree with this one, but there's still a lot of people out there that don't. Like when people are on social media and stuff and they're talking about the Warriors, they're like, oh my god, they just added the best center in the league, unbeatable. I mean, yeah, they were unbeatable without him, and adding him obviously is an upgrade from the centers they've had before, but people are acting like he's going to come back like at the level that he was before. It's somewhere close, which is just no. Like, he's not Dominique fucking Wilkins. Like, he's not. There's not miracle witch doctors that are improving his level of play after his Achilles injury. Like, he's not going to come back at an all-star level, or probably anywhere near an all-star level for that matter. Because you look back in history of people who have suffered Achilles injuries, and besides Dominique Wilkins, none of them came back anywhere near the level of play that they were at before. Like, not even close. Like, you look at guys like, obviously, like Kobe Bryant. I think Brandon Jennings. I think he suffered an Achilles injury. I think that's the injury he had. I'm not sure. And then a couple other guys, but none of them came back anywhere near all-star level. Obviously, the Warriors are still the fucking team to beat, because even if he doesn't come back at all how he was before, all he has to be is like a guy who can give you like 13, 15 points and like 8 rebounds, and then he's an immediate upgrade from what they had before, and he immediately makes them better. But, you know, obviously he's still a locker room risk and all that, but I don't think he's going to be awful when he returns. I just don't think he's going to be anywhere near the superstar player that he was last year before his Achilles injury. And I think, you know, the people who are freaking out about this Cousins Golden State move are I don't know, exaggerating and a little bit overreacting, I guess. Okay, so this one is a little interesting. Might sound outlandish to some of you, but to me it sounds perfectly reasonable and 100% realistic. I think the Indiana Pacers are conference finals bound. Yep. That's right, it's not going to be Toronto or Philly versus Boston. In my opinion, the conference finals, somehow, one way or another, it's going to end up being Indiana versus Boston. Now, my prediction for like the standings, I have Indiana around like the 3rd seed probably. And you know, if they beat whoever they play as the 6th seed, obviously they're probably going to beat them. And then I think if Toronto or Philly is the 2 seed, I legitimately think that this team can win 4 out of 7 games against Toronto or Philly. That might sound completely retarded, but like, you look at how good this team was last year, and then they added Tyreek Evans, who was a 20-point per game scorer and a 6th Man of the Year candidate when he was coming off the bench. And Obviously, Victor Oladipo's still young, so he's going to improve. All the other young players are going to improve. Sabonis is probably going to take a leap. Uh, Miles Turner might take that leap to all-star level that everyone's been waiting for a while. And I think this is going to be a really good team, if not in the regular season, in the postseason. And I think in a 7-game series against Philly or Toronto, not Boston, but Philly or Toronto, they could easily win. Okay, so this one is a little weird. It's a bit of a stretch. I mean, most people think the Jazz are going to be good, so it's not that bold, but, like, I don't think anyone thinks they're going to be this good, that, like, how good I think they're going to be. So, I have the Jazz getting the 3rd seed in the Western Conference, which I know, like, a lot of you guys would probably say, like, the Lakers, the Thunder, the Spurs, they should be above the Jazz. But think about this, okay? The Jazz had a pretty bad start to the season last year. And that's because Rudy Gobert was injured for, like, the first half of the damn season. And once he came back, they set the league on fire. Like, they literally went off. Like, no one could beat the damn Jazz once Rudy Gobert got back. So I think the level that they were playing at the end of the season last year is how they're going to be playing the entire season this year. And I think they could maybe even win like 57 games, something like that. I know that sounds crazy for what this team looks like on paper, but it's more realistic than you guys would think. Like, the Jazz winning 57, maybe even 60 games is not that much of a stretch. I mean, Donovan Mitchell is improving. Rudy Gobert is improving. They still have Derek Favors. They still have Ricky Rubio, Joe Ingles. I mean, that starting 5 right there is already pretty good. And then, you know, you look at their bench. They're pretty deep. You know, Jay Crowder, Thabo Sefolosha, Dante Exum is pretty young. Royce O'Neal's alright. Jonas Jerebko. They won 48 games last year. And that was with Rudy Gobert missing like half the season. And I don't know. I think if they play how they did the second half last year, the whole damn season, they could be the 3rd seed by probably a pretty wide margin, maybe. And maybe even make the conference finals. Probably not. They probably won't get past Houston or Golden State, whoever the hell the 2 seed is, but it's possible, you know. They have a really good system. They're a really good defensive team. They're pretty slow paced on offense and kind of like hard, like, I don't know, they're kind of unpredictable on that end of the floor. And they're just a deep roster with a good coach and a lot of guys who are just like selfless guys who are just going to compete and try to win night in and night out. And, you know, Donovan Mitchell is probably going to be an all-star. Maybe. So, when you think the MVP conversation going into this season, I guarantee you there's 3 players that pop in your mind who you think are going to win the MVP, and then you think no one else has a chance, right? And I know who those 3 players are. They're probably LeBron, AD, and Giannis. Those are probably the 3 players that come to mind. I don't think any of those players are going to win MVP. Maybe a couple of them are going to be top 3 in the voting. None of them are going to win it, though. None of them. I mean, maybe LeBron. He probably has the best chance out of those 3 players I just named. But my pick for MVP is kind of an unpopular pick. Like, I don't know why. Like, this guy who I'm about to name probably has the best scenario to win it, and he probably has, like, the best situation around him. But I really don't hear his name brought up in conversation that much. You know, I hear the 3 players I named, AD, LeBron, and Giannis. I hear a couple Hardens here and there, maybe some Westbrooks, maybe some KDs. But for some reason, I'm not hearing many Kawhi Leonards, and I don't know why. He has the perfect situation around him to win MVP. And honestly, I think the award is his, unless he just has no motivation and just only plays at like 80% this season because like he's so dead set on leaving. But if he's actually playing like at a 100% level, and he comes back from, like, I mean, it's based on the preseason, it's looking like the injury didn't affect his playing that much, but who knows? It's just preseason. But basically, if he plays at 100%, like, I don't see who can win the MVP over him. Because last year, the Raptors, they won 59 games with DeRozan, and then swapping DeRozan for Kawhi Leonard, one of the most efficient offensive players in the league, versatile. He can score in any way you can think of. He's a top 3 defender in the league. He's a guy who can give you 7 boards a night, 4 assists probably, and I think he's probably going to average like 28 points because he's not having to play in that Spurs system anymore where, like, you know, he has to like share the ball and shit. You know, he has full control over this Raptors offense, and I think in this system he's going to excel and, you know, go way past what people are expecting from him this season. I think the Raptors are going to win like 60-something games. Like, I know that's not much of an upgrade over last year with DeMar, but it'll probably be like, it'll probably be a little rough, like just everyone adjusting together for the first bit of the season. But once they get in the groove of things, they're going to be a really hard team to beat. And, you know, with Kawhi at the helm of that, and maybe averaging like 25 to 30 points, playing a elite defense, and you know, just leading this Raptors team in the perfect system and situation to win MVP. Gonna be the first to second seed in the East. I don't know why. I don't know why a lot of people are excluding him from their MVP conversations, but I think if things go as planned, the award is his. Like, no one's taking it from him if this season goes how I think the season is going to go. Well, that's pretty much the end of the video. I mean, keep in mind these aren't my real predictions on what I think is going to happen. These are more like what I feel could happen, like in my gut. Just bold predictions, you know, stuff that a lot of people wouldn't agree with. Let me know in the comments if you agree with any of these bold predictions, and just leave a like on the